Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. My name is MiAh the King, and last night I slept like a baby. I woke up 3 times, cried for 2 hours, and pooped my pants. Now then, today we're taking a look at a game just released on Steam called The Crust, developed by MiAh Studio and published by Crust, I think I'm saying those right, released in early access and selling for $30. Now I know a demo came out some time ago and I probably could have played that and then done a review on it, but here's why I didn't, just real quick before we get into this. Because I've seen more games release after a demo and then be completely different from the demo, more broken than the demo, and just overall not the same game as what you previously played. So I do this now so that I put myself in the place of the consumer, actually purchasing the final product, or at least the released product since it's early access, and giving my opinion based on its legit release, because the price does influence our opinions and does influence ratings. Now then, let's actually review this sucker, and as I mentioned earlier, it is in early access, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. So, what is this game? Well, basically, you're a new director of operations for a new mining operations section on the moon. Things go wrong, I'm not going to spoil how or why, and now you have to basically save the whole operation. The game is played in a automation city builder simulation kind of game. Alright? Alright. So let's go into the positives. First, starting with the graphical design. It was the first thing that struck out to me. I was very pleasantly surprised with the graphics here. I think what really got me was the lighting effects and the contrasting colors and whatnot. I started watching this and was just very pleased. I mean, you're on the moon, you know, not a lot of color up there or in space, and yet they found a way to have the different contrasting whites and grays and other low colors to work well with each other. The lighting effects of the sun and the shadows on the moon were also impressive and worked well for setting the mood of where you are and what you're doing. And with this game being an automation simulation style game, I was also really happy with the level of detail that was included here. There was a lot of good attention to detail. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the best everywhere, but it was still nice enough as a whole to be enjoyable to stare at. Next up for the positives was the sound quality. The ambiance, sound effects, music, and voice acting were all really well done. For instance, during all the voice acting, no one ever really sounded forced or cringe or fake or anything. Everyone sounded as realistic as I'd expect, and considering I wasn't even expecting any voice acting, that was a very nice surprise. As for ambiance, well, you'd be surprised. I mean, we're in space and on the moon, so not a whole lot of it, yet the game found a way around that. With random radio dialogue happening here and there, the sounds of the machinery and other things happening around just made it feel alive and real. The music was very pleasant to listen to, and yet it didn't overlap the rest of the sounds. It drifted into the background where it belongs perfectly. Then the sound effects of clicking as well as doing different things all just sounded how you want them to sound in a game like this. The next positive point that I'd like to talk about is the tutorial. It's done parallel with the story and blends into the main story fairly well. It talks to you, it tells you what to do and how to do it in a simple, realistic way, and for some things it even gives you a little clip of, showing you exactly what you need to do or what they're expecting you to do. Show and tell here, which was much appreciated and helped me learn how to play the game in a timely, unconfusing, simple manner. Which, honestly, is something that you really want and something I really appreciate. The next positive point is the gameplay. It starts you off with having 3 modes of gameplay: tutorial, story campaign, and sandbox. The tutorial flows smoothly from tutorial directly to story campaign, so you don't even got to worry about exiting and coming back in and starting over again. It just, flowed right in, which I thought was a really nice and smart design choice. The gameplay itself works like this. You have buildings that do stuff. Build them! You have drones that can be assigned to different positions depending on what it is you need at the time. You have a surface view, an underground view, and a planetary view. Now, the first 2 are fairly simple. You need to find and mine resources that are under the surface, but on the surface, you need to build stuff for your human staff, or build power generators, solar panels, and whatnot, along with landing platforms and a buttload more. On the planetary view, you can send out rovers to complete certain tasks depending on what it is they were designed for, like, a scouting one. It's pretty self-explanatory. But that's not all. You have conveyor belts and processing plants, electrical grids, a research tree, a trade tree that allows you to discuss different contracts with people back on Earth where you trade or sell or buy certain resources or whatever. There's also dialogues where you'll be approached by different important people asking for your aid, and then you get to pick how best to approach the situation, with each of your decisions having pros and cons. Overall, I really liked the gameplay. I really appreciated it. I don't normally play or even like these kinds of automation games, but this one wasn't overly confusing or complicated, and it worked really well, and it introduced me to the concept really well. I think that was the best part. Well enough that I was having, fun as well as understanding the game. Next up for the positives is the user interface and production quality. The writing was also really well done. The UI looks good, feels good, it's easy to navigate, and your key bindings and controls feel smooth and coherent, which makes playing the game more fun. And by production quality, I really like the cutscenes, as well as the events as they take place. And last but not least for the positives is the price tag. When you consider all that's offered here, I feel like $30 is a very decent price. I mean, we're talking decent production quality, writing, coherent gameplay, voice acting, good music and sound effects, lots of options and gameplay components, and I just think it's really appropriate and really well put together. Alright, so that's all the good I got to say about the game. Now we got to go into the negatives. But before that, do me a huge favor and show my channel some love. Like, comment, and subscribe. It helps a lot. But if you want to be notified of when I post out a new review on a game you might not know of yet, then hit that bell. Also, feel free to share my content online. All of this stuff really helps me to get noticed, which helps me to grow. And I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you. Now then, on to the negatives. So, the first one I've got here is the stability. Now, it's an early access game, I'm aware, but it still did have some stability issues, and I still felt I had to mention them. I was having issues with the game dropping frames on me a lot, as well as the game freezing on me a couple of times for long enough periods of time that I actually thought the game had crashed. Then you've got the drones sometimes just not doing anything, like my storage bin is empty or almost empty, the resource machine is full and not producing any more of that resource, and yet there are just 6 drones just sitting there, idle, not transporting resources. They should be, because they're not assigned anything else, so I don't understand why they're not. I'm guessing it's got to be some kind of code within the programming. So, the game still does have a few quirks to work through, and as annoying as those were, even the freezing ones, they didn't last so long that, I thought that they broke the game or that it ruined my experience. The freezing was frustrating, and while it did last long enough to make me doubt, right about the time I started doubting, they unfroze. So it's kind of like they were long enough for me to know that maybe it crashed, but then they fixed themselves right before I, force closed the game myself. So yeah, it has its glitches, but honestly, I really don't think they were that big a deal, at least for me in my playthrough and my experience. And now for the most horrible, most terrible, most despicable freaking negative I've ever seen in any game since the existence of games ever. It's not finished yet. But no, seriously, I couldn't really think of another negative. I really looked at this game and tried really hard to nitpick and find something negative to write about, but I just couldn't really find anything that was worth it to write down. I couldn't find any faults big enough that I could talk about here. I mean, the game is pretty legit, and it's made fairly well. I mean, this is an amazing start as an early access game, and I can't wait to see where they go further with it. If you're into automation games or city builder simulation-like games, then this is a game you just gotta check out. I was actually really having fun with it, and I was really impressed with its levels of quality, even as an early access game that was just released. Sure, they need to iron out its stability and finish its development, but I can kind of see the roadmap future of this game's progression, and I'm really excited for it. Do I recommend it? Well, as I said, if you're into these kinds of games, then yes, absolutely. You'll find yourself really immersed and having a lot of fun within the first hour. Alright, everybody? Alright, that's all I got. So stop watching and start playing. That's all the time I got for this video. Thanks so much for watching, with a special thanks to those of you who stuck around to the end. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you all again on my next adventure. So until then, I bid you all farewell.